Hey, yo, what's up? This is the Protect Your Neck podcast, and I'm your host, Dan Tom. Analyst is work you can find over at MMAJunkie.com as well as OddsCheckerUS.com. But on this year program, the Protect Your Neck podcast, we break down high-level MMA. That's what we're going to do here today, tonight, whenever you're listening to this. Hopefully it's before the fight. Recording this on a Thursday night in the wee hours of the night. And actually, it's Thursday night. It's not quite after midnight, we'll let it all hang out. What are they going to let it all hang out? What are they talking about in this song? Anyways, we don't need to picture that. Apologies for that. But we're going to hang out in a semi-appropriate way, as we, kind of tend to do, I guess. Either way, thank you for being here. Check the timestamps for when the UFC Vegas 52 or when any of the Bellator Hawaii. I'm going to briefly breeze through those as well. I'll timestamp all those for you. Check the show notes or the, maybe they're still called the show notes or whatever. If they're on YouTube as well, Daniel Tom MMA. I don't deserve your subscriptions, but thank you for those of you who subscribe and comment. I'm still working around and getting back to y'all. I've been bad about getting back to my messages. Trying, it's just hard, as you could tell by everybody. We're all swimming in fights from last weekend, this weekend. Again, I'm not trying to, do the I told you so bit or whatever, but I do feel like the choir, what was once a choir of, there's still a lot of bootlicking out there, but, there's not enough fights, or, why do you guys want to break? Boo, there should be fights every week. I feel like that crowd's kind of quieted down. I feel like even they've gotten their bloodlust and fill fulfilled at this point of just ultimate content filling, but that is what we're here to do. I'm going to give you the best I got for both cards as per usual. And of course, I break down everything from top to bottom in that order. And at the very end of the show, if you want to skip to that, listen to less of me, you're probably not alone. I do it for that reason, though, to save you some time, since, again, these are kind of, I'm not going to say the expedited word, but you know what I mean. They're not done. They're not out to the end of the week, which, it's probably for the better, to be honest. Like, for us doing content and you trying to, make use and make this content meaningful, right? Use it as a proper reference point, whether it's here and the many other places. I hope you're not just listening to an idiot like me, but I do, like Brody from Mallrats, occasionally squeeze out a few gems. So that's why you guys come here and, probably more consistent and more winning than I give myself credit for, which another reason why I want to track. But this year's been a bit crazy, folks. But yeah, I'll recap, pick some plays at the very end of the episode, and check the timestamps. Just trying to get back into the swing of things. Speaking of swinging, got a little too excited swinging kettlebells, and I'm hoping I didn't retab my labrum, because I'm hoping to be getting into a program. We'll see, possibly. I've kind of hinted at it. And it's basically, there's enough fucking media people doing this or versions of it. It's like not even a secret anymore. But yeah, Rich True, former Bellator and Strikeforce matchmaker, approached me like last year about doing this guy's got to stop messaging me, man. Oh no, he's a great dude. But like, he messaged me last year. He's like, hey, you're gonna be doing this program. He's like, we got, Casey from MMA Fighting, which there's concluded. We were doing them in California right now at this time last year. It's like, yeah, we're going to do a Vegas one. So you should like to do it. And I was like, yeah, man. I'm like, it's weird. It's like, I like physically, athletically, by the eye tests, I'm like the least quality. Give me Dan Tom. Give me that pushover, But at the same time, like, like, not only, like, would I have more experience than anybody in, like, a Wim to Warrior, like, program, like, if you really wanted to fluff it up, which some fighters do, by the way, even when they don't need to, but, if I really wanted to fluff it up, like, I look at these UFC bio sheets I look at every week, and I wasn't trying to be I told you so, by the way, with the Kyle Ohio. I know everybody doesn't get those, but that being said, Kyle Ohio, if you listen to commentary on fights or Kyle Ohio interviews, he did, cite his accolades there. Granted, I'll get to that when I get to that. But the point is, I bring up the bio sheets when I look at these every week, and I'm like, fuck, man, like, got just as much accolades, as like some of these people put down on these sheets. And I'm not at a high level. I suck. Yes, granted, of course. But at the same time, throwing punches and kicks or having punches and kicks thrown at me by the punches and kicks just quantified themselves. It's a lot. It's fucking up there. So I don't know if I'll be able to compete, even if I, or whatnot. I just want to do the thing. I don't want to put the horse before the cart, especially with my luck. Because, of course, Rich hits me up last year, right? And then, of course, what happens literally the next week? I bust my hand. I'm like, motherfucker. Because I was spending all last year just to be like pre-camp, to get back into shape so I could get into working out. Which is just efficient, right? You hear fighters say that. You don't want to spend your camp making the weight. You want to spend your camp getting better, strategizing, so on and so forth, getting sharp, right? You want to almost have that pre-camp. And Lord knows do I need it with all the weight I've gained and just like the fact that I've had this repetitive theme of injuries popping up, like just fucking nonstop in life, apparently. Whenever I've been trying to get back on track for over half a decade now, since 2015. So I'm just like, I just need something to keep saying. So like, just yeah. When it gets closer, hit me back up. Rich, let's do this. Anyways, pre-camp gets fucked up last year. All this chaos, right? It's been chaos this whole beginning of this year, even, right? We all went through that. I don't need to go back through that. And okay, finally coming out of it. All right. You know what? I had to unfortunately take a bunch of life stuff to start blowing up. To, lose money, take some time off work. Fuck me up during negotiation times, as you saw. Which, by the way, shouts to like Abby, George Goes, all the people deservedly so. You saw the MMA Junkie getting bumped to full time again. I'm not making this stuff up, folks. It was a crucial time, and your boy missed a window there. And because of that too, Bellator. If you're wondering why I'm not in Bellator Hawaii right now, hanging out with Popo Doris, is because again right around that time where I had to take that break, Bellator Hawaii announces they're going to do their thing, and it's like for one. I full disclosure, I paid my way to go out there both times, folks. They're not paying for me to go out there because beat reporting is not my beat. There's much better people, much more qualified people. Hence, we had John Morgan and Kenny the first time, Matt Erickson last time, and this time, and I believe Nolan and Matt are out there. So they wouldn't ask me anyways, much less ask me when I'm like clearly going through shit and on like a work break. So there was just a bunch of things going against me. And again, money don't grow on trees, and I lost money. I'm still recouping from said break that fucked all of this and a bag of chips up for me. So yeah, no Bellator Hawaii, but I will be breaking that down. But yeah, anyway, so that all fucking settles or whatever. And I last few weeks I've been getting back into shape. Working out. Oh, it's been feeling so fucking great, man. Working out. Gonna hang up the brackets for the home gym punching bags. As I've been taking more and more steps for that as well. In the garage. All things working toward this quietly behind the scenes. And Rich texted me last week, I think, because he was seeing if I was up at the San Jose shows. I mean, now I'm coming from home. And sure enough, the next day I'm like fucking all pumped. I'm like, I can't. That's right. It's still going. Maybe let's talk. Oh, maybe this program's gonna happen. I'm just getting in my head. Just fucking the fires are getting all stoked again, right? And I just go at it with a fucking kettlebell workout. Just heavy. And I even do these new ones this new exercise I almost forgot about. And it wasn't anything too crazy. They're like kind of like suitcase carry variations where like you just essentially like you're kind of like it's not a squat because your feet are kind of closer together, but you're reaching down to pick up the kettlebell beside you with proper posture. Like it's a suitcase, and then you set it down across from you, and that whole control of having to reach across and control, and then you repeat and do the left side, right, back and forth. I think I fucked up somewhere there because I haven't done that thing for a while, and I'm not doing it under supervision. And just getting crazy, man, just getting excited, and went hard, and sure enough, feeling pains in my shoulder that feel all too familiar when I had my labrum tear 2 years ago. So I need to make a doctor's appointment anyways to go get my health checked out and a bunch of other things, blood work and stuff done. So I might as well go get that checked out, and he can do his O'Brien's test or whatever they did last time to figure out that I had the labrum tear in that runaround from late 2019, early 2020 that I was dealing with. So I don't know, man. And I don't even care to disclose this stuff because it's like, let's say I go through this program and I have to do it nursing an injury, and I'll probably pick up a bunch more injuries because that's how the game goes. And again, my luck. It sounds like these programs, you get to know each other. It's not like you're going to be able to hide injuries from the people you compete against anyways, even if I get to the program, even if I get to that point, even if they allow me to compete. So a lot of ifs, but your boy is, not that you cared about any of that rant, it's a big deal for me because I just needed to not go crazy, man. You really see, working out's a fucking privilege. That's why I hate these bootstrap mentalities, because it's like, yeah, some people need to hear it, but like, there's a bunch of people like myself who know the fucking benefits of it. Like, we're well aware how much better our lives would be. and we're trying, but life's real. Something shit happens, family, real life responsibilities, work. You guys know this. I'm preaching to the choir here. I'm not saying anything new. But even the strongest, air quotes, people in the world, as we see, we're here for mixed martial arts, when they get injured and aren't able to do what they love, we see how much it affects them. And that's kind of the shit I've been going through. So all that to say, as we push through the fights here, I promise, I just wish me some good juju if you can. I really need it to get through healthy. Clearly, we're going to be dealing with the same beats in this game. No matter how positive I am, fuck it. Let's do it. Let's fuck them up. We'll get to that. But if I could get some it's just really important. Just physical health, man. Physical health, mental health, and you can't, sometimes you can't have one without the other. They're both important. So that's what your boy's working toward. All right, we're working toward Bellator 277 recap. Not much to talk about there. B recap. I'm just going to talk about Nemkov and Donnell, run is my sport. Corey Anderson, man, this would have been a good break. Good, it's funny. This was a losing weekend for me, and there was some bad, just straight up bad bets that I'll own up to for sure. We'll get to it in a second here. And bad bets that I didn't take, good bets that I didn't take, right? Officially. But it's funny because all in all, this was a losing night, and I still consider this a very, a good luck night for me. I'm trying to keep things fair. I'm trying to call things as they are, right? Trying to raise my hand when I make a bad call. No bad beats. There's just some bad calls on my part, which we'll get to, and I'll fully own up. But at the same time, it is funny that, like, a good night for me of good beats is a night where, like, I still end up losing at the end of the night and passing on winning bets and losing in my bank account. Again, I think only a unit, thank God, officially. A little less. Which we'll get to. But, yeah, although you really can't claim it on this one. Because I didn't bet Nemkov, and I didn't tell you to bet Nemkov. I just picked him, and people were like, "Hey Dan, I'm surprised you weren't going to lay it on Nemkov because you bet him last time." And it's this like bias that we all have where we like we get very, again, like I said last week, we cash on someone, and there's that natural bias. We want to cash on them again. I'm guilty of it all the time. Sometimes you can, sometimes you get caught speeding, right? Which is the worry, which was my worry, why I stayed off, and sometimes you don't. But that being said, like I tweeted, man, hearts out to Corey Anderson first and foremost, and his supporters, whether it's his family, friends, or any of y'all that bet on him, because I'm pretty sure y'all should have cashed that ticket. I mean, obviously with the rules, I'm not complaining. It was really unfortunate. It just had to go a little longer into the third technically for it to go to the cards. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about, and I know it's MMA. We never know, so I don't want to be too certain. But I want to give credit where credit's due, man. And it looked like Corey Anderson and all y'all who bet him, you guys were on your way to the betting window, and that was a really brutal beat, and I completely feel for you, and I want to put that out there. The next one, I did pick right, and a lot of you cashed, which was awesome, and you gave me credit, which I appreciate, but really, you guys deserve the credit. It's your money. You're the ones betting it. I'm just a reference point, but if you want to shout me, or give me some love, that share, whatever, any kind of the ways you show support, that's of course always appreciative, and you guys know I appreciate that. But y'all need to take credit for the bets. I'm not telling you where to put your money. Y'all are big boys and girls, and can do that on your own. So grats that you did, because I made all the sense. I put the stats, I put the analysis out there via Twitter, via my breakdowns. And I didn't go back to watch the fight. It's one of those ones where, you have the close round argument, which automatically you can always do that kind of scapegoat argument of, well, it could go either way, which, it can be really convenient how we apply that. So I try not to lean too much into that either, or even on times like this where it benefits me. And I didn't go back to watch the fight, so I can't really pontificate anyways. But I will say that enough people who didn't bet the fight, enough people who didn't pick Pitbull, enough people whom I respect, had no issue with the scores. So there's that. So for what that's worth, and I'm not selectively trying to go back and this and that. It's just so hard to make time to go back to watch anything. I will say I did make some free plays on Pitbull by decision and Pitbull in the houses because I didn't really use free play on anything. So I actually again, I lost a little less than a unit off the books, but when I did that, again, at that point, I already tweeted pre-podcast and said on the podcast that I wasn't uber confident. And they were free plays, like, for real small amounts of money. Like, and I did, tell one person, admitting to him DM, I believe. At least, so, not putting my chest out, but if for some reason someone wanted to call me on something that I'm humbly hat in hand, not even counting, I mean, I guess I have proof for whatever reason. But yeah, off the books, lost a little less than 1 unit, which helped there. But again, I can't take credit for it. And it was a losing night regardless, with some really bad fucking calls on my end in the UFC, which we'll get to. Let's do that now. 16:32. UFC recap on ESPN 34, UFC Vegas 51. We went 9-5 overall in picks, which is not too bad. But we lost where it counted. We went 0-1 in the parlay. 2 out of 3 legs. Doesn't matter. It's still a loser. 1-0 in the straight play, which we'll get to. And 0-1 in the prop, which I deserve to lose that one. So we'll get to that one too, because that's right off the top. That prop was, of course, Luque inside the distance. Bilal Muhammad defeated Vicente Luque, unanimous decision. Yeah, man, smart fight by Muhammad. Like, I don't know, like usual, folks. I'm not surprise. I'm not in one camp or the other. I'm not hating on Muhammad completely, but I'm not like S in his D just because he's a media darling. And that's often the hard thing. I saw a lot of hatred for Muhammad, which was unwarranted. But if you don't like his style, that's totally cool. Like, I don't blame you. It's not the most exciting, He just fights smart, man. And I appreciate the hell out of that, even when I pick and bet against him. So I've always liked Muhammad, even though I've picked against him. It's not that I dislike him. I hate picking against Chi-Town boy, but and a Palestine rep. He repping Palestine on the mic, and he's just a good dude, man. He just gets a lot of hate. I've always liked Muhammad, so even though I lost the bet here, it didn't upset me. But I think what it is, and because I have that contrarian gene too, and I think what it is, and again, I understand anybody didn't like him for the style. It's totally cool. You don't gotta like the guy, right? I get it, but I think, a lot of that is that pushback because he's so media darlinged up, and we'll talk about, Angela Hill, when we talk about Lemo Show, that it's just so hard when you have fighters who are media darlings, especially fighters who are media darlings on the desk. So you're getting, the media, like my colleagues are kind of S and the D, right? And then you have even more powerful and potent, the broadcast media, right? S and the D, because they are the filter to which that informs many of us, casuals to hardcores to pros alike. To all the scores, a lot of the scores you see on MMA decisions can be shaped by commentary. As it's hard to prove, but I would like to say that I've pointed out consistently on this show that not enough people do, because we are humans and we are subject to human biases and error, as seemingly needs reminded, right? Sorry, I was going with that shit, but yeah, it's just yeah. So when you have a fighter that's a media darling and a media darling on the broadcast, because they're like on the panel on the desk, like Angie or Bilal is, and I like them both. So I hate this because I feel like an asshole and I sound like an asshole, but it needs to be said because again, it has legs to it. It's the truth. You're not gonna get like fat chance / good fucking luck getting honest analysis or honest commentary from when these people fight. You're just not going to get it. We'll get to Hill and Lemos, how awful it was, and that just puts a tint on everybody's purview, especially when it's the broadcast media doing it in conjunction with my colleagues, my side of media too, right? We're guilty as well. And you get that with Bilal. So you have people like, I think it was great. I lost money. I picked against him, and I'm fucking giving him props. But at the same time, it's like, I don't think we need to get on our knees and suck off Bilal for this one. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's relax. It was a good game plan. I get it. Okay, let's easy. It's a family show, right? Let's stand up and zip up. but that's kind of what you're going to get. So what you see because of that, you're going to see pushback, and then it becomes, because with everything in the world, because there's not enough of my team versus your team, and but I fall in the middle, and my bet falls short. Luka didn't fight that great, and Muhammad, did what he needed to do, fought smart, came prepared as he does, and like really deserves a lot of credit, man. The mental of coming off of any kind of loss, especially someone you lost to, it gets in your head. Like that's huge, man. That's huge. Everybody has that one person that owns them at the gym. I mean, imagine in a fight, could Luke be the guy like that? That is really big. So no hate at all for that. Next fight, co-main was Kyle Bohio defeated Gadzio Margadziev. This is the one bet I cash, and it's funny. It's like I got lucky to cash it, right? Because even again, I don't have an issue with the point deduction. It ultimately comes down to this really gray area of intentional versus unintentional. These points have been brought up by other people already a billion times this week. I'm not trying to get too far into that. Hopefully, you guys have done your due diligence listening to this podcast, and on your own as far as the rules there, But yeah, I mean, it is referee discretion ultimately, and regardless of what we think of that, whether we agree with it, whether we like it, referee discretion is huge in there in these areas, in these gray areas, and I was really worried. It's just like, it's funny. It's like I talk shit about Herdine stoppage after this whole like crazy laundry list. I've had multiple episodes on bad stoppages where he dominates the rankings. There's all this evidence, right? So I'm not out of line saying that, but of course, I tweet. A very critical tweet of Herdine, and then he goes and like turns in one of the best stoppages of the year, and good on him. I tweeted, I owned up to it right away, but same thing with Big Dan, like something like, I think it was like Joey Odessa was like something like Big Dan. It was earlier on in the card, and he was just showing his indecisiveness, right? Which was it? Bullseye. I think it was that one. Buddy Barnett. Hey, Bullseye. And he kind of showed some indecisiveness. And I talked about that before and I feel bad about saying that about Mark Smith, because now it makes sense the way why he does it, because the dude was a fucking fighter pilot, like legit. Like, oh yeah, okay, no wonder that guy's gonna always look hyper attentive. Like that's probably just stuck on him. That's a good trait. Okay, very forgivable. Apologies, Mark Smith. But like, I still feel like Big Dan, who has more evidence in the track record, negative in that department, right? You look at Jeremy Stevens, Josh Emmett. That wasn't one that was called, but there was the arguable foul there. He lets it go on. Josh Emmett gets fucked up and he's out for a year. You got he loses shoe, almost barely getting in there in time for like Michael Johnson knocking out Poirier. He was of course in the knee debacle with Mousasi and Weidman. Big Dan also cost me money last time out with Dawkins and Holland. Lets the fight goes on and then retroactively retracts it. I mean, you want to talk about referee discretion. I mean, again, I get it. It's frustrating, folks. Believe me, I know. And I thought I was going to be on at this end, and I laid out all those examples, and I kind of co-signed with Big Dan, or not Big Dan, on Big Dan with Joey O. And sure enough, Big Dan comes through and gives me the one cashing bet with that decision. So, in that sense, yeah, I'll admit, hey, I guess you could say I got a good beat on this one. But again, the ironic thing about me getting a good beat is not only is it a losing night, but on the one fucking bet that I get the good beat on, or that I benefit from in that sense, right? If you look at my analysis, and I was getting excited, granted it was a bad night, and my analysis was spot on. What did I say? I tweeted it. I said it literally everywhere. Odds Checker, Junkie article, this podcast. Gadzio Margadziev, I know he's a Russian wrestler. He's going to be the favorite, but he's going to throw himself out of position. And Bohio is a judo, regional and national champion, black belt, as well as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt under Damian Maia. Trained with him for 8 years. You don't want to throw yourself out of position there. And also that, like, didn't he rock him with a flying knee, and he sure shit kept going for it, almost finished the fight with it at one point. And again, I called for that as well. Really specific shit. So apologies, I got excited. I definitely didn't want to come off as a douche. People were like, hey, how are we supposed to know that or whatever? And I definitely wasn't trying to do that. But it was just one of those things where it was like, again, it was Kyle Berhayo was not impressed with him the first time. I hate betting Contender Series slop. I shit on Contender Series slop and schlop thrown in the co-main event. I've been burned by it so many times. Look at Soriano and fucking Maximoff, right? That bullshit decision. Like all these, like, oh god, I just was set up, Nah, not today. And then thankfully I did. Yes, I did get the beat. But that is ironic, get the fight that I do get the good beat on. I was fucking right on the analysis. How much of a beat was it? The guy was dominating the fight. He was gonna win. But again, okay, again, people out there want me, not that people are accusing me of this, because again, I feel like I do a pretty damn good job of it for all things considered, all biases considered, just being fair. Okay, that's a good beat my way. Bad bet, not even a bad beat, just a bad bet. Andre Fialho defeated Miguel Baeza TKO punches. I knew it. I even when I typed it out and I said it on here, even on my odds checker article, which I always say again, parlays are crazy, and they don't force me to do parlays there. So if, I even told them that sometimes I don't want to do parlay. What if I want to do straight play? I don't want to feel like I'm obligated to do plays or certain types of plays, and they gave me the freedom there. So no one put a gun to my head. I chose to do the parlay, just like no one put a gun in your head to tail me. I was the idiot that chose this. And I even said it when this particular leg in particular was not confident at all. And it was such a bad, I should have known it. It was such a bad thing to parlay. Whether it's a 2 or 3 leg, I always have at least that one parlay bonus bolster. Which good news, I have it for both of my legs this week. And of course I didn't have any. So it was a really dangerous parlay in that sense. And what, I like Fialho, and this is what I was afraid of on why, even though, again, I picked his last fight exactly how it played out, Michel Pereira, by decision. I wasn't extremely confident because Fialho had this potential, but I just saw him get rocked there too, and I'm like, this guy gets rocked all the time, and ultimately, what the difference is, even though he gets rocked a lot, he recovers well, and he's ultimately more durable than Baeza, which was the difference. It was just kind of annoying because it's like everyone was talking about Baeza's chin, and I'm like, Fialho gets rocked all the time too, and obviously Baeza, it's a chin issue, which is sad to say. But to be fair, if we think about it, how many times have we accused someone of a chin issue and been wrong, right? How many times have we gotten overly excited, right? Right? I mean, we got like a couple Brendan Schaub meme KOs, but even that, like. And he went out with the one on, I believe, by Travis Brown. But, like, there was a good stretch there where, like, 3 or 3. I used to get excited when my friends like, oh, it's meme time. Brendan Schaub's fighting again. Sweet. But, like, you go back and it's like, he definitely was chinny and that was heavyweight and he stopped fighting. But that's, like, definitely one example you can point to. I think the other most potent example of a chinny guy, because really again, Baeza chinny, I was wrong. I'm not saying any of that. But I guess somewhat in my defense on why I'm not quick in general, whether it's Baeza or in general, it's just because I feel like we're just so quick to overcorrect the steering wheel. Like, especially and we hear it, like how many, whether it's the stat flashes or the commentator saying something, because we have this Ultimate Filler content cards where it's all these half contender series cards. Like, there's not a sample size to have meaningful stats. So what you have is out of context stats, which is like, this guy set a UFC record with landed per minute. Well, it's like, well, he rocked the guy with the first shot, a last minute replacement, but the dude had a good enough chin to like stay on Bambi legs for three minutes, and the guy just racked up punches over and over again, and it creates a disproportionate mathematical computation of strikes landed per strikes absorbed, right? And you get these out of context bullshit stats, and then you have commentators, because they need something to talk about. It's not. I get it. They're handed these sheets with these stats. They got to talk about something, and then they end up, hanging on it. And then the analysts, if the analysts, let's say, maybe didn't do their homework, they're going to maybe hang on these talking points more because they don't know what to talk about. You hear all these things kind of just blown out of proportion, which is kind of annoying. But I would say the next chinniest guy would be, what was his name? Cesar Fajeda, right? But even him, it wasn't more than like 2 in a row, maybe at most. It was never like 3 in a row for like these guys, even the Brendan Schaubs of the world, right? And even him, he recovered. And what camp did he train out of? MMA Masters, right? MMA Masters was actually the camp that got him to recover from that chin. So even the worst examples of chinny fighters in the UFC, there was like next door neighbor examples right next to Baeza as far as the upside to that, right? So I was clearly wrong here, but I will say maybe I shouldn't bet to prove the other side, but I still would caution anybody just labeling people off as chinny. It paid off here. But, and another thing too, and people I respect were saying this too, saying like, he doesn't have defense and this and that. I'm like, the guy's got defense. It just, he went up against, big hitters. Matt Brown still puts out young dudes, still competitive. Now, much less, a couple years ago, even though he was an old man still a couple years ago. I'm just saying, right? I mean, if he's still competitive now, it shouldn't be that much surprise if he rocked Baeza, who ultimately finished Brown. Ponzinibbio, who had to come back from a bunch of health stuff, and he kind of had to find his legs underneath him in that fight. But Baeza's doing really well for the first half of the round. And then again, you got Death Touch Chaos Williams. And it's not like he's getting shut out Baeza in any of these. And with the defense, the sad part was his defense actually looked improved. Whether it was the things that you don't associate defense, like feints, lead hand work, variety and change-ups, which people that know more than me or you about that stuff, and like the Eric Nixick and other coaches of the world were like tweeting and complimenting Baeza. So it wasn't just me, my bias here saying that. And then he was doing other things, like even like one of the sequences before he gets rocked, he strikes and then has the wherewithal to catch the left foot counter on his hand. Maybe it still gets to the guard and still kind of hurt him. You couldn't tell, but it was a clean block and a really fast block. And you're like, oh wow, that was a really fast, impressive block. But he's playing with fire because again, shell blocking, even when you do it properly, you can still get rocked in MMA. It's a very dangerous thing. And I don't know if he was rocked there. I don't know if he wants to do that again. And before I can even finish that sentence that I just said to you in my head, the next left hook that comes at Baeza, he beautifully rolls. Like the dude was actually showing good defense, but like the Chaos Williams, what led to his Chaos Williams knockout loss, which was technically his only other knockout loss for being a chinny guy. But again, I'm with y'all after this. Bad bet by me. And here's why it was a bad bet. Regardless, we could argue about defense degrees or chin all day, even though I'm already conceded being wrong as far as the chin argument of it. I'm just defending the guy a bit on his defense. Is because he got greedy. Like when he hit the leg kick and he went back for more, right? And he was in punching range. Boom, gets countered, right? This one, he hits a clean uppercut. He hits a couple, or no, hits a not clean uppercut. I don't know if it was uppercut, but it was a dirty boxing range shot. And then he goes in for another. I don't know if it was an elbow. I can't remember. But it was the uppercut of Fialho. And, man, just made him pay, followed up. And yeah, that just was not good. And the fact that, and another reason why I was wrong and it was a bad bet, not because he did that tactically, but he already fucked up even well before that Baez did tactically by not going for the takedown. He showed that trend in his Sato fight and completely got away with it. It's not like Colby Covington stopped going to the gym after that. Colby Covington only just got to the gym during that camp for Sato, and the dude's already showing improvement and underrated wrestling. If you put that together with his jiu-jitsu black belt and long limbs, I thought he was going to do it. Was completely wrong. And I think I even said on last podcast, I deserve to lose this bet, so be careful tailing me. Hopefully you guys didn't. I apologize for costing you if you did. That was a completely bad, stupid bet to put him on the third leg. My bad. And good on Fialho. He seems like a nice dude too, so I ain't not even hating on him, man. Happy for him too. Mayra Bueno Silva Chitara defeated Wu Yanan via unanimous decision. I feel like she got all the rounds. It was just a lot of, again, I told you guys here, it was going to be the Jackson Wink kind of fluff bullshit striking, and Bueno Silva landing quality shots. I was going to have the damage argument. And even though Chitara can get wild a bit, kind of a little more technical striker, and she was striking a lot better and just fighting a lot better. And again, that was something I predicted when a fighter stops killing themselves to move up. Paige knows that for a bet I'm going to make later. So that was a good sign for me, the fact that she was moving up to 135, right? Even against a big girl like Wu Yanan, who I know Wu also fought at 125 before, but she's just stupid strong. But yeah, Bueno Silva, I thought was the 30-27 was more correct. But it didn't matter. That leg cashed, which didn't matter because that bet crashed. But Patty Savvy subs when he can. Patty Sabatini defeated TJ Laramie via unanimous decision. Like that they went 10-8, get through a 10-8 in there. Just dominant performance by Sabatini. Again, so he was going to go for the finish, but it was going to be hard to tell if he was going to get it or not. You know, same with Wu Yanan. I don't regret not taking those legs. Maybe I take decision, Silva, which I probably wouldn't have. I probably would have took a flyer inside the distance on that one, to be honest. So I probably would have lost. So bad example. But you guys get what I'm saying. It was dicey. So I mean, I wasn't wrong for not taking it. I was just wrong for just parlaying MMA. You're always wrong for parlaying MMA. I mean, hell, I win more than I lose being with these conservative ones, but I never feel like I win, to be honest, because it's like, motherfucker, you just didn't get caught speeding, bitch. Like, that's how I feel. I can't really take too much credit because it's just crazy. But people love the parlays, and I do like playing them. Again, keyword fun, so I got to be full disclosure when I do. Pat Sabatini came through. Munir Lazez defeated Anglusa via unanimous decision, 30-27, 32-7. This one also went down how I predicted it in my main card picks and prognostications article. Via unanimous decision, again, kind of like the Michelle Pereira Fiallo. It's going to be one of those crazy fights, but it ends up going to decision, It's like nail biting the whole time, it almost feels like. And it was funny. Shouts to the Vivisection. It's one of the few MMA podcasts, breakdown podcasts. I'll try to have on in the background for my dessert when I'm running around doing stuff on these little like 24 to 36 hour periods between when I place my bets and everything's all in the books to when the fights start. And they're talking and doing this thing, which I've had my own take on this, but they call it the disappointed dad. And Henry Uft. How like he's always just like, as soon as like a fighter kind of, and he's a great coach, by the way, like even Zane and Connor admit this, and he's got a ton of respect from his peers, which always tells you a lot. Like, the Eric Nixicks of the world, Tyson Chartier, all these guys respect, the fellow coaches respect Henry Rift. I've always been a big fan of him, so I don't mean this illy, but he definitely has that disappointed dad where you almost worry, you're like, I almost wonder if he's beating the confidence out of his own fighters worse than the opposing fighters that his fighters are facing, right? Like, I remember just when DC was just like, beating on Rumble for the second time, like before Henry Hoof stormed in the back, he was so pissed, but he's just like, come on, don't quit, where's the Rumble line now? Come on, stand strong, head up, stand strong, and he almost like slaps him in the chest, like he's the dad from fucking The Sound of Music, like having his, like, when he rolls in, like, he blows a whistle in Sanford, they all line up like they're in the fucking Sound of Music, and they perform a song. Wow, Dan. As I found out, like, shouts to a listener who has tweeted, like, I was in fucking high school in 2011. I don't know your references, Dan. I'm sitting here referencing musicals probably from the fucking 60s, The Sound of Music, I'm guessing. But anyways, Henry Hooft, like, and Angalusa, like, he hit, like, this sweet, like, Jacare Souza style, back shifting right hook counter into the southpaw stance. And, instead of, like, giving him credit for the crafty counter, Henry Hooft was just like, don't move backward, go forward. He just gets right on him. Come on, stand strong. So that's why I was, like, tweeted, like, hey, Dad, look what I... But Lusa did look better, man. But he did lose to Lazez, who shouted out Daniel Kinahan. And people continue to be upset when people, guy brought it on himself, man. Like, that was a dumb shout out to make, dude. I don't even think, like, Darren Till or whatever made those shout outs. Not that he's beyond, or Khamzat is beyond, this Kadyrov things. This is sadly just MMA stuff, man. And I'm not writing it off when I say that. I'm just saying, like, people being upset, like this is being uncovered, or like people are like Me Tooing fighter, like, man, this is a long history of this shit. This is just the latest of it. It ain't right. I don't feel bad for Lazez, but yeah. You want to say stick to sport? It's like these are the motherfuckers that keep, interjecting it. It's not even shit. It ain't even us most of the time. But hey, what are you gonna do? Devin Clark defeated Thick Willie. Willie Thickums. Come on, Devin, you got fucked. I don't know what was more disappointing. And thankfully, and again, fucking, my heart's with y'all, Thick Willie. I didn't end up pulling the trigger, even if I teased a private bet. I didn't even do that much. I did pick Thick Willie, and my heart was with you betting. This is saying it told you so or anything like that when I say these things. I was glad I didn't bet him. But you know what the more disappointing thing is? Not that it being wrong on a pick or even if you bet him. It was, I didn't, did you guys hear it? Like, what, did they cut? Were they afraid to blow their speakers? Like, did they cut, David Clark's mic, you know? Like, I didn't hear any, like, you got fight, goddamn. Because, like, I think Willie was doing good at certain points. Like, when they were announcing him, like, Devin Clark looked over him and was just like, he had that, like, Rob Madrigal post Shevchenko knocking out Jessica I face. Like, oh, Jesus. Oh, boy, this is going to be a long one. Yeah, I didn't hear a David Clark, but you guys apparently appreciate it. Got a lot of responses. I know delirious Dan Tom and passionate Dan Tom can both get crazy, especially when they are put together like that last week's episode. But I got a lot of positive feedback, so shouts to y'all for listening. I forget that people listen to this damn show, you know? I was like, what the fuck? Penny Kienzet, who probably should have been that third leg, defeated Lena Landsbergen, knocks elbows out Bergen's tools out. As DC was like blown away, like, wow, this girl throws elbows. Like, yeah, she name's the Elbow Queen. Drakkar Klose, did I say dude? Sorry, I meant chick, girl. I meant it respectfully is what I meant. Rafa Garcia defeated Jesse Ronson via, oh my goodness, thank goodness I didn't get to this Ronson line while he's plus money, because I would have lost out. That seemed like one of the more sexier lines, but I didn't research it, so I stayed away, and maybe this is why it was a good thing to stay away from you. From what you don't research, Potter. Hey, Potter, Martin Potter defeated Chris Barnett via technical decision. Pedro Munoz. This was, everything to say has been said. Just bad matchmaking, boring fight. Right person won, but just, and again, this is why replay is good and why they should use it, because I thought it was blatantly illegal. And, there was a bit of an arc, and I could kind of see what he was doing on a different replay. And replays are tricky, so, right guy won, I guess. Jordan, you love it. It's defeated Trey Ogden via split decision. I didn't watch most of this card, too, by the way. I was, like, running errands, like, most of the time. So, like, yeah, it just was tough. Like, it's like checking out of a Target when like McKee pitball in the middle rounds. Like, I just lost track of shit, I saw round 3. That was a fun round. But anyways, yeah, Sam Hughes defeated Stella Nunes. Thank goodness I stayed away from her, because I was like, at first I was like, oh wow, I should have used her. Then I'm like, oh no, Sam Hughes doing it right. I missed this fight completely. Alatang Ali defeated Kevin Kroom. But that was good, man. Seeing these Mongolian, Chinese adjacent area, however you want to put it, fighters. Sorry, I don't have this stuff in front of me. I'm a little, and there's kind of some crossover, which we'll get to, and some good foreshadowing, if that tells you what I'm on ahead. From those guys who go over to the Fight Ready camp, from that, embracing the Asians over at Fight Ready, the Asian invasion, as Henry Cejudo said it. He wasn't just talking about Zhang Wei Li and Zombie, all right, that takes care of that recap. 40, that's kind of long. 43:01. All right, we'll go Bellator Hawaii. Again, I wish I was there. Kind of a bummer that I'm not. I'm sure Nolan and Matt are doing a good job. I'm seeing like all the homies, though, like Rob DeMello, people from Bellator, the reporters, local ones, like, what's up? Where you at, brah? And I'm like, fuck, man, I wish I was out there so bad. And just to see family, too, man. Pablo Doris, the legend herself, man, she ain't getting any younger, man. She's in her 90s now, man. So I'm definitely going to go out and see her with the girlfriend probably in December, regardless if Bellator goes back out there. Although that scares me because, again, remember what happens every time I travel? I get fucked up, so knock on wood. Maybe it's good I didn't go in that case, but man, hearts out to everybody out there. Eric Nixick's out there, my guy Eric. I really wish I was out there, man. Some good food. I think I might follow Nolan on Instagram, so I might have to avoid seeing that, whatever food he posts, especially because he didn't even hit me up for fucking, what do you call, recommendations. Like, when I was out there with Matt, I think he was out there with his lady, so like he was like going to fucking like Ruth Chris and shit. And Matt don't follow anybody on social media. He barely doesn't really interact. They're not sure you guys can read between the anyways, yeah, like, he was like going to like places like Ruth Chris and shit. And I'm like American establishments that you can. I'm like, why the fuck are you going to all these places? He's a points guy or whatever. So he didn't take any of my recommendations. No one went out to Hawaii like I think like on vacation or something last year. He said he'd hit me up, and he hit me up. I was like, all right, bro. I bet a fucking 1,000, man. I've been taking people out to Hawaii, band members, friends, girlfriends, family members. Family out there for decades. Everyone has a fucking good time when they take one of my recommendations. But hey, all right. Shouts to Kenny and John, by the way. I won them over. I could tell they were like, all right, Dan, whatever you say, W&M Burger. I'm like, trust me, guys. This place is not just all Hawaiian food. They'll fucking kick your dick in with American food too. They'll do it better than the mainland. Got them some W&M Burger, and they're like, you weren't fucking kidding. I'm like, what did I tell you guys? What did I tell you guys? I bet 1,000. So, feel free to hit me up, anybody who visits out there. Respect the islands, but you do that, I'll give you some good recs. So, shouts to everybody out there in all seriousness, though. Always a good time covering Bellator out there. Yeah, I was going to say not too much great of a card for betting, because I joked about that with the Liz Carmouche bet I posted, in case you guys aren't listening to this in time. But in my defense, I did show my work there, and you could say I'm making up for not betting Pitbull last week, or you could just say how I kind of think of it is that no, if you're picking a dog that you have evidence for, and it's some proven talent, and it's the veteran fighter, because again, 2020, late 2021. 2021, late 2021, early 2022. More often than not, we've been having a lot of vet lessons doled out, and more often than not, your boy's been on the right side of those, right? So it really hurt to not bet one. So I'm just more just not making up. It's more doing what I should have been doing in the first place and have done before. It's more, I think of it. Not crazy exposure. 1 unit on Liz Carmouche straight up at one house. I should have bet it. It was like plus 135 and plus 140. I thought it opened and got inflated higher, but it didn't. It opened and got inflated lower. And then I didn't want to post like in the middle of the night. So I'm like, well, let's give it one night swing. I mean, if it already moved by now, it's not going to move anymore, right? Nope. Drops down like a whole 15 cents back down to almost the opener, plus 120, plus 125 is which way I got it for. In one house, I did lay a little bit on decision, half a unit, and I kind of split the difference there on the money line play, because you're getting plus 225 on decision where I think it goes. Because Velasquez looks tough to finish. Although Liz Carmouche could get a submission, because that's part of the reason why I picked her. She's actually like legitimately improved her game. I know she had some submission losses up at bantamweight, but not only has she like earned her 10th planet black belt or whatever, but like she had that when she fought Shevchenko, though she couldn't show it much, obviously, because Shevchenko will kind of just out wrestle everybody, right? If you're not like Amanda Nunes, up at 135, but she's been like grappling a lot. She always had the grappling spoiler edge, right? She just couldn't do it against Shevchenko. So she's always had that. But she really is going by this theory, and you grapplers know what I'm talking about. She really is getting behind the knees and the elbows and really understanding that. She's really dogging out positions, and I love it. And she's also coupling that with lockdowns. Lockdowns from strange positions, like locking down the leg when she has the back, not just like your typical lockdown half, like you're on the bottom and it's like almost like a deep half desperation move, how we've traditionally seen 10th planet lockdown stereotype or stereotypically used. If you really actually go back and watch Liz's Bellator fights, which I know I had no reason to watch either. I had to do it now though because it was my job. So I never watched any of them live, and I was like, wow, she actually got fucking better. Old dog can learn new tricks, which makes sense because even though, she's not going to be the more athletic fighter here, she's still athletic nonetheless, and strength is different than athleticism, but her strength compensates, arguably bleeds over, and bolsters that athletic arbitrary stats in our head that we're doing right now, if you will, right? So she gets after it, and then power, I don't know about knocking out the Japanese lady Kana Watanabe, but still impressive nonetheless. I mean, it wasn't like the greatest technique or anything, but she still has that power, just that veteran savvy, and Juliana Velasquez should be favored here, folks, and like her checking jabs and hooks. Could be enough to edge out and edge out rounds and shut down Carmouche, right? In a more sloppier, just as boring but not as convincing version of what Shevchenko did. But she's not Shevchenko. She doesn't have the tools. She doesn't have the experience. A lot of that's fluff. She backs up with her head straight up. And when she does get taken down, she has no answer for that said lockdown position because we saw Ilima-Lei Macfarlane get her in the lockdown from top half, right? And she held her down for the rest of the round. And, Ilima just ground and pounded her, but Ilima-Lei, doesn't have the most power in the world. It's not really her thing. She won the round, but couldn't, get anything too meaningful off it outside of that. But, Carmouche could do that all day and even, emphasize it and punctuate it a lot more. Maybe even squeeze out a finish or win a controversial decision, which is what I'm ultimately picking. It's just hard to pick a fighter that fights so close, right? I talk about this all the time. When you fight close, you leave the door open for big moments to steal it from you, which I fucking hate. But and I've been on the wrong end of that a lot with Carmouche because she's traditionally come on late in rounds, got a late round takedown, done some things to kind of sway the judges. And she's gotten better since then, right? So, it leaves the door open for that. And it also leaves the door open for the busier fighter. And Carmouche is far from a busier fighter. They're both counter fighters, which, again, like the Shevchenko, could make just a fucking staring contest. But even with all those things considered, Carmouche is still the busier fighter than the two. She also has the more variety, so therefore the more visually pleasing and the more chances of finding success. So, yeah, man, it made too much sense. I wish... I was thinking it was going to be plus 240 or something for Carmouche. That's what I was hoping, and I was excited to go bet and go look it up after I did my analysis because I didn't even look at the line. I try not to until I get my analysis in. And I was like, oh, only minus 140. Let's wait, sleep on it. And it got where I'm like, fuck it. I don't know if I'm going to like any other dogs this week, which I do, but I don't because they already got bet up as they do for UFC. Because all the fucking savages out there got to beat the lines. They fucking beat the hell out of the lines. And I don't talk about beating on a winning thing, even though they do that too. Congrats to you if you do. I'm not hating. I'm just talking about you just beat the shit out of the lines where it was just like, man, it's barely Tuesday and you guys look like you guys fucking gangbanged and jizzed all over these fucking betting lines. I guess I'll just take sloppy fucking 30 seconds. Sorry for that visual, folks. That was crude. Sorry. But yeah, that's just I'm just picking careful. I've got a glove on, but I'm still carefully picking up the number that I want to bet. Yeah, I guess I'll take this. Eek. Anyone got a black light? Where's this pen? Well, yeah, that is. I hope the Valium levels are okay. I took automatic level control and feedback, so I don't hear what I'm doing, and hopefully, no, it should sound fine. Hopefully, yeah, me too. Let me know. I think I've been recording with the gain all the way up too. I've been doing stupid stuff because I'm stupid like that. But yeah, that was the line for that one anyway. So I'm gonna take a shot at that. I don't know what this wild card thing means. The Mikhailov and Barzola fight. I don't have a hot take on that, so I'm not even gonna try to mislead you guys. Not that I don't want to lead you guys in the wrong direction. I would not try to mislead you guys. You guys know that. I will go. We'll talk about Arlene Bledko, Cyborg. I haven't gone through these yet. I actually called it audible because it's I was just you sure you want normal treatments for Bellator and UFC? I was like, yep. I'm like, okay. It's all ladies fights on the top, and Bellator because they're so damn good about. I love people at Bellator, but goddamn, Jack Slack and those who criticize us are right. They're just terrible at marketing their own stuff. And I totally spaced that Kyoji and Patchy Mix and Juan Archuleta and Rafion Stotts are on this card. And then I totally spaced that those are part of the Bellator Grand Prix. And one of them is an interim title fight. Because, Sergio Pettis got injured or whatever, right? So I'm like, it just was all coming back to me. It's all coming back. But Dunbar's number and this brutal schedule. And Bellator has been really stepping up their schedule because their roster's gotten bigger. So it's fuck, man. It's getting so hard to cover all this shit. This weeding down that I do, folks, and picking and choosing my spots has become the norm. I used to be such a completist. I am a completist, so I still do beat myself up for this when I don't, have every fight research. But, you can't possibly do that. You really got to pick and choose your spots. And if that means missing out on some potential gold, then that's fine. I'll miss up on potential gold if it's unproven gold, you know? Yeah, maybe I would. Maybe there was enough evidence like a Kyle Borhaio or Omar Gadziev where you can make a decent play and read and still cash. But you know what? If I'm going to miss any of those, I'll miss those. And if I'm going to get anything wrong, at least I'll get wrong betting on more proven products, if that makes sense, as far as looking at comparing worst case scenarios on a would you rather. So anyways, after looking at that, I said, you know what? This is going to do shit. No offense to Blanco or Cyborg, you know, why don't I just do a main card picks and prognostications article for Bellator? That way I get everything covered. It's an easier lift for me. It's an easier lift for you guys behind the scenes because our editors and video people work hard enough. Shouts to them over at Junkie. And yeah, and again, thankfully, boss is super understanding and made sense to him. So yeah, I'm going to do that. That'll come out Saturday along with my main card picks and prognostications article. But I'm pretty much leaning toward the favorites, obviously, over Cyborg, who I did predict would get her first submission win last time for what that's worth. I know picking her to win wasn't a big deal, but I will just say, you know, she never got a submission in her career. She did, I did, whatever. Stats, minus 225, Juan Archuleta plus 185. Parlay piece material, I think, possibly for Stotts, but I got to look into it a little more. Big fan of Stotts. Let's see, national champ or national qualifier 2-time, I believe. He was a 2-time NCAA Division II national champion. He was mentored by Kamaru Usman in college. But yeah, southpaw sensibilities. I think he'll be able to pick off when the fluff and when Archuleta does his fluff switch stances. Archuleta looks so weird, but like in his Spaniard suit, he's like all serious. It's like he feels like a kid playing dress up. Really gets into it. Anyways, we got minus 255 Wataguchi, Patchy Mix plus 25. This is a tough one. Obviously, leading toward the Gooch, but Patchy Mix feels like he could be upset material here. You know, Gooch getting older, you got the big size difference, even though Gucci is like knocked out and out grappled, long grapple savvy dudes before. But also Patchy Mix, you know, training at Extreme Couture, getting those times in there. So I don't know, man. You know, there's a little bit of that bias, of course. But no, I'm probably going to end up on the Gooch. We'll see. If I do end up on Gooch, it'll be on that thing. And you got Alimale McFarlane rounding out the main card. I'm not going to go through the whole card. Justine Quiche plus 270. Obviously leaning toward Alimale. Maybe, I don't know if the line should be that much. You know, she did talk about thinking about retirement. I believe I saw in a headline, but I didn't read too much into that. I don't know how much you can read into that. So I did that too much with Chukagian, and she came and just, you know, had like some of her better performances right after that. So it's just like, you know what I'm saying? McFarlane looks in good shape, and I think Justin Quiche's wildness will probably play into McFarlane's wheelhouse and get her the win there. And so right now I'm leaning toward the favorites, and if I pick all the favorites, you can parlay them for like the neighborhood of plus 180. 4-leg there. I may do that for a unit, but I think because of the time difference, I think that not all my plays for the UFC Vegas card, but I think the UFC Vegas card might either be done or close to being done, but I know what will be done. I'm pretty sure the prelims will be done by the time the Bellator main card starts in Hawaii for 279. So my 2-leg parlay is on the prelims, and if that hits, I'm definitely going to hit lay some on maybe like a unit or something even on just a 4-leg chalk parlay for those top 4, you know, or maybe just a half unit actually for fun, to be honest. And again, I want to at least make sure I'm looking good, you know. Hopefully Carmouche cashes and that parlay cashes, and then it's just the last 2 plays and the little bonuses that I have set aside that I'll give you guys here in a bit. But that's kind of what I'm feeling. Again, nothing set in stone yet. Just telling you what I'm looking at. I'm going to dot the I's and cross those T's on my main card articles tomorrow night. So that's when my analysis for Bellator will be technically finished. Just telling you where I'm leaning and looking and the caveats to any potential plays should those potential planets align. All right. UFC time. Where are we at? 1 hour UFC time. 1 hour UFC on UFC Fight Night 205, UFC Vegas 52, UFC Fight Night, Lemos versus Andrade. So this is this was a fight. I'm kind of surprised. It opened, I think, a little lower, right? No, around 200. It hasn't moved too much, though. It hasn't moved too much. I didn't expect it to. Jessica Andrade should be favorite. Didn't expect her not to. However, I did expect a better line on Amanda Lemos. I know she didn't have the toughest competition, but, you can look at it like, as you do the basic Sherdog breakdown or Tapology breakdown, you go, well, Andrade only just a real quality fighter for the most part. Champion, old champion contender this weight class, lower weight class usually. You could piece together those couple of those theories. You're not wrong. But I think more specifically, more meaningfully, to get something we can put in context, do some deductive deducing without being reductive, reducing too much, if that makes sense. I would categorize it or characterize it as Jessica Andrade has had her toughest fights, and the common threads in her losses and just toughest fights in general to fighters who can competently counter. If you look at it. Renault really fell off a cliff. Not the best fighter, and that is a weird one, but Andrade was in that point where she was only like a blue belt at the time and purple belt. She came into the UFC actually as a blue belt. Suffered some submission losses, and Renault does counter, is the theme of her game, even though she's not the greatest fighter. That is her spirit. So technically she still does fit that bill. I know that is kind of the one weirder outlier. Obviously Pennington is a counter fighter. But Andrade goes and focuses on her ground game, like actually does grappling competitions, legit earns a black belt, and now can get back to her slamming game and gets her title that way, right? But again, counter fighters, which is Lemos. But Lemos, which is problematic for any female fighter, any weight class, and I would say problematic trait for any fighter under 155, no matter male or female, no matter your division, is cardio. If chin's a necessity to heavyweight, cardio is a fucking necessity in the lower weight classes, especially these female divisions, and that is the one glaring thing with Lemos. She slows. She's a former 135er herself. She's bigger in some ways, as far as taller and lengthwise, as far as dimensions go, than Andrade. So she's not a small fighter by any stretch, So yeah, and she's never fought 5 rounds, even those jungle fights. As often, I don't know what that is with their title fights. Someone wants to enlighten me, but I know their title fights are always listed as only 3 rounds, and so even the one she went for decision, and then avenged with the 3rd round KO. That was her only 3rd round finish. In fact, that was her only finish outside of the 1st round, and that was like what a girl that was like 2-0 headed into their first meeting. I mean, she can crush for sure on the regionals, and hasn't fought the best competition in the UFC. But again, she legit could fuck up Andrade with a check hook or elbow, similar to Zhang Weili, because she could do it from both stances and has the power and is really potent in the 1st round. So if you're picking Andrade or you're playing Andrade, you have to be willing to accept that that's a possibility. So for that, I was hoping to get a better line. She's the newer under contender. She's, air quotes, undefeated at this weight class. But unfortunately, she's coming off of a fight that's a split decision that shouldn't have been a split decision. That was, again, against a media darling that got in it. So, from broadcast media to my side of the fence media, got it into all the Gen Pop heads, and it reflects on MMA decisions and so forth, that was a close fight, or closer fight than it really was. It wasn't. Like, you want to give one of the rounds, which one's top of my head? I believe it was 2 or whatever, to, what do you call it? Hill, that's fine, but like, there's 2 clear rounds for Lemos there. It's just you got like Michael Bisping talking about how, I think it's like the 3rd round, how like how good Angela Hill's doing, and like Amanda Lemos lands like 4 unanswered strikes, debasing leg kicks, and then like hits her with a spinning back kick while like Bisping's like going on about Angela Hill. And like the shot, the big air quote big right hand like clearly hits her in the shoulder. And they're like, oh, she's rocked. And I'm like, no, she didn't get rocked. And then the spinning thing that knocked her down, it was the classic, someone's off balance and it misses, like hits a shoulder, right? I love those. How many times have I lost rounds and fighters lost their checks and me and the rest of you lost bets because of just those, fighters on one leg, they get punched in the shoulder. Like, oh, it's a knockdown. Yeah, that was just fucking so annoying. Oh, it was so hard. I did the Judges Gonna Judge article, like where I break it down. You can go look that up. And again, I used similar math again, just to show it's not being arbitrary. And I was on the right side of this one, as I should have been. But I used the same math I did for when I was on the wrong side, at least result-wise, with Torres and Dern, which is, okay, how rocked is she? Because anytime like Angela Hill, on the points of success that either commentary or people making points for Angela Hill in that fight, I actually specifically make it a point to go in my Judges Gonna Judge article and highlight those for Hill, whilst telling you how many shots Lemos would go on and how many exchanges, and both consecutive shots and consecutive exchanges she would go on to win after she was quote unquote rocked or quote unquote lost an exchange or got a good shot landed on her. And that to me is much more justifiable math than the subjective. That looks hard. That doesn't look hard. That's down hard. That doesn't down hard. She swing big. She swing hard. We'll get to fucking Macy Barber's butt in a second for that. But yeah, you guys know how much I love that bullshit. And it almost costed me there. And like even that fight, again, when I'm on the right side and I do cash, right, I got to hear, oh, you got lucky, you got a good beat. Like, no, this was not me getting a good beat. In fact, you could say I got a bad beat because I have to fucking justify this win. And now, when I want to go pick and play on Drash here, spoiler alert, I don't even get as good of a line because stock low on Lemos, stock low. This is the classic one where you have like the flashy first round finisher, the undefeated fighter in the division versus the veteran who already had their chance. This should be the time where like you're getting, even if Andrade is still a favorite, you should still be getting like a discounted line. Because and then we're, savvy people like myself or listeners of the show will come in and not do the stupid blind MMA betting trend of we gotta thank people who are breakdown. And then we clean up that way. Do we win all those every time? Of course not. But more often than not, we do. And God damn it, it is the more justifiable play. And so yeah, again, you can say it's a good beat, but no, it's still being affected by even the fights that I win. So those are my, my air quote good beats there. So anyways, I'm taking on Drash here. I'm taking inside the distance. Dan, didn't you learn your lesson from last week? No, last week, I'll tell you why I lost last week, because, and another reason why a bad bet and you could say it this week too, although I will say, last week it was like, the 4s were looking like 7s because it was a room full of 1s, if that makes sense. And this is like a room full of 2.5s to 3s that are making the 4s look like, 6.5s because I'm trying to be a little sober and bring it down. I don't know if that makes sense, but the point is I think it's a little bit better of a pull. And the reason why it was a bad bet and why I deserve to lose that Luque bet was because I've been the guy that have been reminding everybody that rematches don't go the same way, whether I was right, didn't bet it like Pitbull, whether I was wrong, but didn't play it and told y'all to, be careful at the current asking price for like Jan Sterling. Like, regardless of the result, I had the right analysis and message there. And I knew as soon as I played Luque inside the distance, I'm spiting my own message. I'm spiting my own logic. I'm spiting the MMA gods, right? Like, you're betting for a fight to end the same way, the second fight to end the same way in the first one. After you just went and fucking preached. After you just were proven right for like the third or fourth time within 2 weeks. And it hurt the most because it was Pitbull's fight. You didn't bet it. So you were right and you didn't even get to reap the fucking rewards, dummy. So of course I deserve to lose that. This isn't a rematch. This isn't that. And this, I would say, if any trend, it's that trend where, you get burned, so you get scared off the bet next time, and then you lose money. You're like, I shouldn't have been scared off. I should have stuck to my system. I should have stuck to my read. I should have stuck to my gut feeling, or whatever. That's the angle I'm playing here. This is a classic spot because I ate shit so hard. I'm going to be passing on things, that are, and at the end of the day, we can argue that if it's a room full of ones or a room full of 2.5s, sure, that's up for argument. But at the end of the day, the same logic applies. Win or lose, if we are going to play and we are going to take the risk and do the stupid thing on betting MMA and the stupid thing on betting these type of MMA cards, right? Which again, these are the perfect weeks to exercise discipline. I say it all the time. That's why I even said last week, which as stupid as it was, and I called it going in, and I warned you for tailing me. I said the shotgun spread's going to be small for a reason, and I try to keep my shotgun spread small for a reason. So even on a terrible week, I only lost a unit. It wasn't too bad. But yeah, no, I'm not gonna get scared off. I'm still gonna pick the more dependable sample size. Lemos hasn't been scheduled for 5. We haven't seen her in 5. Andrade is a tank. There is the first round, maybe even the first 5 to 7 minutes, where we might have to worry and sweat a little bit. But Andrade is really difficult to put away, even if you go back and look at that Zhang Weili fight. Like, Zhang had to hit her with a bunch of stuff. And whereas I think she can get Lemos down, and Lemos does not have as good of a ground game or good as scrambling as Zhang Weili. So I'm going to take Andrade here inside the distance. I think she gets her out of there somewhere in the middle rounds. And also, Lemos just backs up to the cage way too much. She backs up, she's got crafty footwork, so she draws people into counters, but she doesn't angle off. And that was another thing, too. It was footwork, whether it was Yen Jacek. And again, top level fighter, really, and even her, she had like worse for wear. She really was accruing damage. But like she had footwork where she would circle back out, right? Shevchenko obviously circles, takes the center. Like these are people with good footwork as well. Even Rose, who like arguably lost to her the second time, like she's arguably. Like Andrade is arguably 2-0 to Rose, so she could really come here and make a statement. I don't think she's showing up for a check. And get another shot at Rose, because I think Rose is probably going to beat Esparza, right? So, I don't know, man. It seems right. She's still only 30, while Lemos is 34, if you really want to play that game as well. Maybe that's what's keeping the gamblers, because they're so fucking ageist. Sorry, you kids. You kids are. You hate the old people. What can I say? And I'm old, so of course I'm going to be a little biased toward the older people. She is an aging martial artist. But yeah, Andrade inside the distance took it at plus 135 for 1 unit. Claudio Puelles minus 110, Clay Guida minus 110. I wish that was the price in my houses. I missed Guida by dog money. I don't blame people for betting them. This is tough, I had to go back and watch so many. Like next 3 fights, we got Barber next, so we'll talk about that in Maverick. And then she's facing De La Rosa, where I already talked about last week, getting effed out of the fucking Mayra Buena Silva. Then we got Clay Guida. Remember I was talking about Benoit Saint Denis and Renato Moicano and fights that should have been stopped where I was on Inside the Distance. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention, I was on Leonardo Santos versus Clay Guida, so that was fun watching that back. Oh boy. And then this wasn't really like a bad beat like those, but this was just like one of those, like, of course, dude's going to show up and have the worst fight of his career, which was a Hoggle, Chris Gritzmacher versus Claudio Puelles, which was more, admittedly, more of a fate on Puelles than it was faith in a guy who looks like he's going to lead you through the labyrinth. But yeah, like even going back to watch them, like you're over it, you got to put it behind you. You're just like, holy shit, no man, like that was bad. He really did look bad. It wasn't my betting bias. Like the guy really looked bad. And then Puelles didn't really even look that much improved. Like even DC is like saying like these are awful wrestling shots. Like even DC is saying like he shouldn't be rewarded for these. Like you could tell the attitude, like because it was just like stupid things he was getting rewarded for. And while Gritzmacher was like making just the wrong moves after getting like he had so many points where he could have turned that fight around in round 2, and then even 3 just was like being lackadaisical and gave up the stupid knee bar. It was just the stupidest fight in the world. And Puelles seems like a really nice kid, man, in interviews. So I feel bad. I feel like I'm picking on him. And he is, maybe not. I'd say I'd give it to Barzola, to be honest. As far as like best Peruvian fighters, you want to talk maybe a fighter is like certain percent Peruvian, then then we'll go like Rick Lamas, or something like that. But like he's not. He's anyways. No matter how you want to categorize what constitutes as Peruvian representation, he is not the best of them. But of course, I got love for my Peruvian brothers and sisters. Shout out to Gorgeous Georgian Goes. I got love for Peruvian food. Not to do that like racist. I like the food, so I can't be racist. But I genuinely like Peruvian food. So there's nothing against that, man. Nothing against this kid. All love to him for doing this, but he's not Humberto Bandanay bad, but he wasn't too far off that from one of the worst featherweights. You know what I'm saying? He's improved his stock. He's up at lightweight now, which makes it probably harder to rank because it's even deeper pool technically. But yeah, man, I'm still not a believer. He could be getting better. He's at the age to be getting better, but he had like year gaps, and he didn't make that big of improvements for like someone you would consider a prospect, which he certainly is not. And then he's at Sanford MMA, but like, again, how much is he going to get better? Because there's like hundreds and hundreds of people. That's like arguably overcrowded right now on the mats at Sanford MMA. So like, how much of that individualized attention is he getting? Right? How much of the wall or the cage is he getting? Because that's even more prime space, and that's where you're going to need to be training, because you're training for a small cage fight against Clay Guida. And this Guida, man, is ageless. You really got to put him away. And he can go into submissions. But usually it's susceptible in like first round submissions, not third round submissions. Claudio Puelles is a slow starter, and he's nowhere near the accolades of whether it's jiu-jitsu black belt, which he doesn't have, and it was a lucha libre purple belt, or just the accolades and experience, which he also just doesn't have. I mean, he doesn't have the same things that those guys who submitted Clay Guida even had. So could he? Yeah, possibly, man. And I'm really gonna be in the hole to this kid, but like, I don't know, man. He's like you go to his fights like Felipe Silva, just all these fights, like, oh god, like I didn't even go back to watch the Marcus Mariano or whatever. That was just, that guy didn't even belong in the UFC, so it wouldn't. It tells me nothing. But yeah, like the guy just, he's not even Contender Series, and maybe there's some Contender Series fighters who maybe have more of a stake as far as skill-wise and ceiling to be there than he does. So this is definitely a fade on him. And stylistically, it's going to be tough, man. This is submission stymieing guy, Clay Guida. Again, unless you catch him with something freakish in the first round, you got to knock him out. I don't think he's going to knock him out. Now, Clay Guida did get hurt by a body kick that sparked off the initial thing by Leo Santos, who's an orthodox fighter, but he switched to southpaw. And if there is one thing that Claudio Puelles does, is he spams that body kick. He just spams the body kick in the left cross. He got a little more trickier with the timing, where he does the counterbalancing thing, where you immediately shoot the left cross whilst you're rechambering your kick off the same side. But like, outside of that, like, that's the most craftiest thing he does. He just, there's just no real process to his fucking game. It'll be a fucking travesty. And I say that, so now it's going to happen, of course, if this guy fucking stops Guida after I bet Santos to stop Guida. And I bet you Claudio Puelles will do something much less skillful and much less deserving of a stoppage, but would get it, right? This will be the perfect spot. Oh my God, I'm speaking into existence. Shut the fuck up, Dan. Because you bet Clay Guida and you laid the chalk on him. Oh, I couldn't get him at the minus 110 or the plus money. That's what you should look for him for. But again, this is just betting on the more experienced guy, the vet lesson, it sounds great in interviews, just consistently does this thing for the most part. Style that ages well, plus a more than justified fade on Puelles. 1.2 units to win 1 unit straight on Clay Guida. I don't know how he's going to get it done, so that's why I just took the money line. Macy Barber minus 180, Montana De La Rosa plus 155. This is tough, man. I'm going to pick Barber by decision, but I'm not going to play it, even though you can get a nice plus number, because I'm rooting for De La Rosa, man. And she is, the better wrestler and better jiu-jitsu fighter, but it's just the athleticism. Is Macy Barber going to be the athletic cheater that she is, right? And she's training at Team Alpha Male, so even if De La Rosa is able to get her down, will she be able to hold her down? If she's able to hold her down, will she be able to submit her? I'm not sure she'll be able to hold her down, and if she can't hold her down, I'm not sure she'll be able to submit her. I want her to, with every fiber of my soul. I would love Montana De La Rosa to win this. But I'm not sure she will, and I'm not sure Barber will get her out of there. Because even though De La Rosa can get pieced up and doesn't show damage well, she's also hard to get out of there, right? So you get two girls who are hard to get out of there. I'm just going to go with the athletic cheater to do athletic cheating things and woo the judges when, like, she clearly fucking lost rounds 1 and 2 against Miranda Maverick, of course, who was on the wrong side of that. It's a really bad beat flashback coming off a bad week for your boy. I can't help it. I'm not trying to live in negative town here, folks, and play fucking violins. But again, it's just, I'm making this shit up. I can't go buy a pack of cigarettes without running into a fucking bad beat. But again, there's also bad bets in here, which I have to own up for too, and I feel like I do. I didn't bet on this one. I didn't want to bet on Barber because out of principle. But I even was trying to like look past that and go, Dan, put your bias away. Put your bias away. There could be some good money here. And I rewatched the last couple fights, and I still wasn't feeling strong enough. So I'm going to pick Barber as kind of a sadness hedge. And she probably is the deserved favorite, albeit slightly. But yeah, my heart is absolutely with De La Rosa. Anybody betting De La Rosa? Charles Jourdain, minus 110. Lando Venata, minus 110. I can never spell. Venata Vittori, I always like want to put two T's where there's one T and one N and so forth. And the same with the Vittori's with the T's and the R's. I always mix up and get it wrong. I'm going to go with Charles Jourdain here. Venata is a big moment guy, so he could certainly win the fight off of that. But Jourdain is hard to sub. I feel like Venata's going to have to do that Marcus Mariano game plan. But again, Venato's a hard guy to trust to be consistent or stay consistent with the game plan, not get drawn into fights with a guy who is going to draw you into a fight or has the skill to, like Jourdain, which Marcus Mariano doesn't. Just like the sample size that I discounted in 2 fights prior with Marcos Mariano, if that's even his name, who knows, goes to show you, worthless fucking sample size in the first place, right? So what's that really going to tell you? That being said, to its credit, it does provide a path to victory. Venata is a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He did wrestle a bit in New Jersey before dropping out and, did good on the high school level, I believe. He's got crazy scrambles, but Jourdain is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I know he recently got subbed, but that was the only time he's been, I believe, stopped, which was by Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Julian Erosa. But yeah, this is 145. They both have fought at 155 before. And Jourdain just throws more offense out there, more consistent in that regard, more aggressive, and counters. He fights from southpaw, will switch stance and primarily fight from southpaw, and anybody who's fought from southpaw or switch stance, whether it's like Timur, Ferguson, or whatever, has beaten Venata. So, and again, Venata will kind of, walk straight in, shift, square, and run right into shots. We see it in Ferguson, saw it in his last fight. And Jourdain can crack, man. I mean, he lost that split to Feely, but he was like knocking him down hard with counters, right? So I'm going to go with Charles Jourdain here. It's probably going to be a crazy fight that goes to decision. Kind of like the theme with the Pereira Fialho opening the card a few months back. And then my other right call that was similar to that last week, which opened the card. Lazez Lusa, again, another one of these crazy action fights that's in the spot because it's a crazy action fight and because it's a competitive fight and because of that, it blurs you. Where's it going to go? Who's going to get the finish? Who's going to win? It's probably going to go to decision. And maybe I should start betting that for these angle fights. But I don't even think it's going to be that much on this one because I feel like this one they suspect will go to a decision because overs are juiced. Yep, fight goes to decision minus 165. Open minus 155. I wouldn't even have played it at that. So, yeah, not even sexy numbers. So, yeah, staying away, motherfucker. Just one of those days. Alexander Romanov. Michael Chiavello. Minus 1375 or some shit. Minus 2500 at some houses. Jesus Christ. Sherman plus 800. Yeah, he's going to finish him probably first round sub. I wonder if you can get that combo prop for even money. Who knows? Because I was seeing Tyson Pedro. If they have him inside the distance at fucking minus 250 after his big layoff, I can only imagine what they're putting inside the distance for Romanov. But those will be your 2 cheat if you want to parlay / round robin your props. And I know they're not sexy, but in that scenario where you're having that multiply amplifier plus the plus money amplifier of parlaying, you're parlaying props, right? You really at least should, depending on how it does it, which really fucking juice up your odds for you. Even if you've got 3+ number odds, that is, I'm saying props. If you want to drop in one of these chalky ones in the middle of the pile and see what that does for you, see if it adds anything, It kind of cheats and chalks up a chance for a round robin, which I cannot get. I kind of have to hit everything, so this could still apply for me, but Romanov not listing anywhere, that's what I think is going to happen. Surprise, surprise. Would have been cool to see Sumaderji face Manel Cop. Jordan Wright plus 155. Marc-Andre Barriou minus 180. Wish I got Barriou at plus money. I can't do the Clay Guida now at like a minus 120. It completely flipped. But again, that would usually, sully me and scare me off and, make me, my pride and ego. I'm like, I don't want fucking, again, I'm back with my inappropriate analogy after the line's been fucking ran through a chain on a white couch, or something like that. Like you're picking the stickies off. Or you're like, do I really want to play this now? No, I can look fast now. Jesus Christ. Now rubber's really hitting the road here with this analogy. But it's like, you know what? No, this is one of the more clear reads. I'm actually going to parlay Barriou. I'm not going to lay that kind of chalk on him, but I am going to parlay him, which is, just as blasphemous, but more justifiable because this parlay is going to be essentially fading the 2 one-round fighters on the card. Literal one-round fighters. Hard to get one, much less 2 on the same card. Fucking why not fade them? So those of you who are smart probably already know where I'm headed with this. But Barriou, he's fighting on short notice, but he wants to get the bad taste out of his mouth. I know he's coming off of a knockout loss. He hasn't had over 3 or 5 months to recover, which can be scary. But again, at least it was a flash knockout. It wasn't a war. And he'd never been knocked out before. That's scary, and that's like his one thing, and that's like crazy. But, sometimes there's just, and I say this all the time, sometimes there's just sample sizes out there that do you more harm than good when you think about it. What's one of the classic examples I'll throw out there? I remember like Khabib and Iaquinta was one, that was definitely one. For anyone who's looking to support Iaquinta after that, that really fucked you up because anyone supporting Iaquinta, like, well, you went along with Khabib. But there was another one that I was mentioning, I forget. But it just like you're better off like forgetting about these sample sizes. They just make no sense and they will only hurt you. I'm not saying it's one of them, but it's kind of how I'm going to treat this Barriou Chidi Ninja Kwani because Chidi usually coasts and doesn't get those kind of finishes even when he does finish, right? That being said, also Chidi, and to his credit, he is a big hitter, and that was like a kind of a perfect shot, kind of a deal, good shot. So yeah, I mean, okay. And Barriou, he really has gambled on himself. He's doing the conceive, believe, achieve. Looked like he took time off a little bit, just jumped back into it. Even announced when he went from just kind of recreational training to back to full-time training, eyes on the prize. Up to 3 weeks ago, he was already posting on his Instagram saying that he was in shape, ready, staying ready for a fight. So if he was asking for a fight 3 weeks ago, I mean, I imagine he's only more ready now. And it looks like they granted him a catch weight of 190 because he jumps between 205 to mainly 185, which is his weight class. So I'm not too worried about him making the weight there. He got the catch weight. That's going to help him more than it helps Wright, who walks around just over 190. The guy fought at 205. When he did, he only weighted at 200 and was like spotted like pounding a whole thing of like liquids before he stepped on. So he weighs somewhere in the 190s. Walking around. Jordan Wright. And yeah, Jordan Wright is first rounder bust, literally, if you look at his record. And has fought cans. And even like that Gabe Checo win, like Gabe Checo is like, looks like he lost to freaking Rashad Evans, he's a grappler who's doing MMA, but mainly is a grappler. And so it looks like him being knocked out is not much of a surprise. Other people have done it. I think maybe only one other, but the dude's been rocked plenty of times before, even in that fight against Jordan Wright. He gets rocked like 3 times and low blowed before he gets stopped. And what stops him is like the thing that would stop anybody. It's that Koscheck, that Aljo Moraes, Koscheck, Drew Fickett. It's that when you're going to get a head kick but the knee hits. Those are the most brutal knockout shots that put everybody out instantly. It was one of those. And then Ike Villanueva off a cut. And Ike probably would have went on to win that fight too, which is fucked up. So basically it's just Jamie searching for a night wolf. Ooh, it's Night Moves, Dan, not Night Wolf. It was Night Wolf Jamie Pickett, who just kind of falls apart. And And he was doing that. He was asking to be elbowed in the head and getting Travis Brown, right? Whereas Barrio doesn't do that. He doesn't change his level. He goes head to chest or head to head and just fucking blasts you and like dirty uppercuts. And if someone tries to Muay Thai clinch him, Barrio fucking fucks him up for it. And that's what Jordan Wright, to me, looks like he wants to do. And yeah, and Barrio, I think, you know, even if he gets something hit, freaked and wobbled, I feel like he can recover and then come back and win rounds and then end up finishing Jordan Wright. So he's a parlay piece. I also bet him inside the distance, 0.33 unit at plus 150. And then I did a sprinkle. I used my free play, which was basically $10 for plus 1,200 round 3. And I'm going to shout out at Braschuk on his Twitter Spaces for giving out that one. And I was like, oh, yeah, that does sound good. I'm like, I got to look into Barrio and stuff anyways in that matchup. So I did today. And I liked what I saw. So I came through clean on my end. So I want to shout Brad, especially if it cashes. But I just played inside the distance, and I have him in a parlay. So if inside the distance cashes, I cover a little bit of that. You know, I make a little bit of that back on the parlay exposure / other side exposure, right? And then if he wins inside the distance round 3, well, then we're definitely looking nice. We make everything back and then some. We don't even need the other leg. Dwight Grant plus 100, Sergey Khandusco minus 120. I'm just staying away from this fight. I'm picking Khandusco. Amateur MMA, hand-to-hand combat, master of sports. But he just essentially has more of a process, but he's got a big layoff, whereas Dwight Grant is more the opportunist. He's got the smallest torso in the world. He's like all arms and head and legs. He has like no torso. Like if you're a body puncher, like good luck finding his body. Maybe that's why he's the body snatcher. But I could see myself trying to bet him and then losing to some opportunistic shit and be like, yeah, I shouldn't have bet the dude coming off layoff. Good luck if you're betting that one. I'm picking K Honda and laying off. All right, next leg of the parlay. Aorichi Lang minus 235. The Mongolian murderer, Aorichi Lang, versus Cameron Else plus 190. Cameron Else, a literal one-round fighter. He only wins in round 1 or he loses. He can also lose in round 1 too because he's not. He's like a glass cannon. He's not very fragile. He gasses quickly because he cuts too much weight. He's 5'9", and he's a sizable 5'9", fighting at bantamweight. Still, I thought he was moving up, but no. Aorichi Lang is the fighter moving up. And again, back to Mayra Benasilva, the parlay leg that cashed. That I'm going to follow that trend this week because I think that's a good thing. And again, like like we saw last week, Mongolian fighters fighting out of Fight Ready, coming out looking good and finally getting some deserved wins after some tough competitive losses, right, with Haley Alatang. So a little bit of that juju there too. But more importantly, Aorichi Lang is not even a small flyweight. He's fought at bantamweight most of his career, in fact. He's only like 1.5 to 2 inches shorter in the reach and height department. And he looks long, strong. He's the better wrestler because he came up wrestling from a wrestling family. He transitions really well. As long as he doesn't give his neck for a front headlock choke, which most of Cameron Else's come against cans or people early in their career, like a bantamweight Paddy Pimblett. And look at Paddy Pimblett all the way up at lightweight, right? Like on Cameron Else, what's he doing? He's older than Paddy, and this dude is still fighting at bantamweight. And again, that's another thing that I fade. Another reason, another proven thing. How many of these tall bantamweights do I fade? And even when I don't fade them, I warn you about picking them like the Sean O'Malley's because they just fucking fall apart. Tall people in these lower weight classes, big flag for me, big flag. I will more than happily bet the tall fighter moving he's not the taller fighter, but he's still a tall fighter for a small weight class. I'm much more confident in the guy going up in class than the guy killing himself to go down. And Cameron Else, he's 31. He's going to be 32 this month. And you guys know what I say. It's about like 29 to 32 range is the very last years. If they're getting away with it, even the ones that are getting away with it, they're not going to get away with it for much longer. And we've seen people like, Uhl and them have to move up around that time. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not off on these things. Could I be wrong here? Of course. It's fucking MMA. But again, I'm laying out a bunch of theories that have legs to it that have either cash long term, have legs that I can show my work on, or the weird little juju angles with recency bias attached. I just laid out all those things. Arichi Lang, hard puncher, hard counter puncher. Good grappler too. He has like natural propensity to lock up front chokes that like stop even really good takedown artists and submission guys. Or at least if that's their game, I should say. I don't know about really good. That's more subjective. But Cody Durden, that's his game. It's his strength. And if you look at those fights, like, oh man, you want to talk about someone being due to win? Like Arichi Lang, I'm like watching round 2, this Jeff Molina fight. I'm like, how did he lose this fight? Because he is like clearly beating Jeff Molina for 9 minutes of the fight. And then his defense starts getting a little bit lackadaisical with his defense, and then he eats one. Now, it was the classic, he was on one leg that knocked him down, but it was actually a legit knockdown. Now, he briefly knocked him down earlier in that round too, Jeff Molina did, but again, it was more of a, it didn't look like it was impact, it was more kind of motion. And Arichi Lang is immediately right back up, and I think lands 4 strikes in a row without getting hit by Jeff Molina. So I don't know how hurt he was by that one. Oh, and then really rocks Jeff Molina, right? So he's clearly winning the second round, but at the very end, right, he has dropped and he looks rocked, and it was just the classic. And I don't blame anybody for letting that steal a round. I'm not like crying about it, but it was. I don't even think I bet or even picked Arichi Lang, right? Like, so believe me, I'm not crying about it. But I feel for the guy because I'm like, fuck, man, like it's just the worst way, man. And those are like typically the ways that, fighters that I bet lose rounds. So I sympathize. Even if I didn't bet, I still sympathize, right? You got to keep that same energy, right? And then you go round 3, and his defense is kind of like he's just not giving Molina enough respect, and Molina gets some good ones off on him and actually hurts him. But then he comes back and lands the best shots of the very fight because he hurts Molina, who's got like a tougher, he's never been stopped, who like can, arguably chin bully dudes. Molina has got such a good chin. But this guy hits him so hard that if the fight would have gone on any longer, and if he didn't like crucially like crash into him at the right time, he could have possibly gotten the stoppage or easily made the damage that he did do more obvious to the refs. And hopefully the refs would have kept that, or the judges, would have kept that same energy and stayed consistent for giving a fighter, the round for rocking him at the end like they did for Jeff Molina at round 2. So again, just literally the finest of margins. Arichi Lang loses that fight. Then he goes and fights Cody Durden, who I picked Durden that fight, and I was actually going to play him. And I remember, like, if I went with my gut instincts that fight, I would have went 3-0 that card, and I ended up not doing so well. And of course, that was the infamous Cody Durden racist bullshit go home thing. And it was just extra annoying because I went back to watch that fight and I didn't care, and I picked Cody Durden like watching it live the last time I watched it, right? And I'm like, oh shit, like I could see why judges got bullshitted for Cody Durden, but like it was just weird. Like I don't know, like I know we got technically more control time in the first round, but I feel like there, I don't know, like I feel like Arichi Lang did the more damage in all the rounds, but I don't know, like he just looked for the worst for wear. Like you even see Durden at the end of the round, the body language looks tired. He really tried hard, didn't get a lot done with his positions, was just pushing against the fence, like Arichi Lang got more done with his grappling in defending Durden than Durden got with anything he did. Like the most Durden got to was he got an angle at his back and one kind of hook in, and when he went to go to the back, he immediately got flung off. Like he didn't do anything. Like he didn't really secure any advancements, no submission attempts, wasn't even barely throwing like pitter-pat strikes through any of it, especially in the first round, like none. So I was just really, I don't know, I feel like there's a strong argument. It's really hard to say Arichi Lang lost that fight. I know he did technically, but it's like you go back and watch it, like this guy literally lost 2 fights in the most frustrating and finest of margins. If there is a karmatic god, forget my fucking bets. Like Arichi Lang needs to get a win here. And if he does get a win, which he should, it's because he's the more skilled fighter with the more diverse skill set and the more crux skill sets of knockout power, durability, wrestling, like the important things. You got the round 1 fading guy who just keeps killing himself and going through weight. He's looking even bigger coming into this than he did for anything else. That's why I thought it was at 145, because Else actually looks bigger than he normally does around this time, according to his own Instagram and doing the side-by-side photos. So Arichi Lang is the second leg. I also played him inside the distance at plus 100, and I put a half unit on that. So 0.33 units on Barrio inside the distance with a little bit of a flyer. 0.10 free play for me, but 0.10 for that round 3. And then the bonus prop for the other leg is Orichi Lang inside the distance plus 100 half a unit. So if that hits, it takes the sting off. If Barrio, blows the parlay, doesn't make it back, but it takes the sting off. That'll at least cover the Barrio side plays, and then I'll just have to make the unit or whatever I laid down for the parlay. Oh yeah, unit, because if you pair Orichi Lang minus 235 and Barrio minus 190 up, it's plus 117. I put 1 unit on that. So if this hits, we're in good shape. That's what I'm hoping for. We'll see. Otherwise, we're having a hope that Guida does vets. Otherwise, we're having to go with the vets. It's another thing. We're going with vets. We're going experience. We're fading first round fighters. I could lose, sure, but I'm much more comfortable, as you can hear in my voice, with these bets going in this week than last week. And I was upfront with that. And I never tell you guys what to do. I'm not putting a gun in your guys' head. I know this, but I'm just saying. It's worth bearing repeating here. I do put my money in where my mouth is, regardless. So if I'm going to give these plays out, whether it's an article or podcast, I better be, because people do tail me, even though I tell them that make your own decisions. We're all adults. But yeah, that's what I'm going to be playing. I'm much more confident in that. I'm going to blow through the rest of this. With that being said, Ike Villanueva plus 475, Tyson Pedro minus 675. I like Tyson Pedro. It sounds like he has bad luck getting into competition for like almost half a decade now, it feels like. And obviously, I just went off in the beginning of the podcast how I'm dealing with my own issues, and I'm a nobody. Of course, I'm going to feel bad for a dude who actually is a pro and actually trying to make a living at this damn thing. Absolutely sympathetic for him, but between the layoff and the training at Jackson Wink and this number, it scared me away. I'm going to take Tyson Pedro inside the distance, but I think that's even like, minus 250 or something stupid. We got Preston Parsons minus 120, minus 125, and Evan Elder plus 105. Don't know much about either of these guys. Evan Elder has a bunch of like kickboxing accolades scattered all over his bio, but you can never be too sure about that. Preston Parsons, though, man, he's an aggressive guy. He looks like he's a run-around fighter, but at the same time, he is the one that's going to have a full camp here, which I didn't realize, and it's a small cage, so I'm going to favor the pressure fighter, who's the better grappler, and Preston Parsons. Inside the distance or plus by submission, I feel like that would be worth a sprinkle, maybe, if you were really desperate for action on any of these fights, but I didn't look into it, so I can't tell you to do that, and I don't fucking loyalty to that. I just trained with him, on a trip to Alliance back in the day, so I don't really know him, but I guess if you want to count that as a bias, whatever. But yeah, Preston Parsons here by submission. I wonder what that number is. I'm looking it up right now. Parsons by submission plus 245-ish neighborhood. Yeah, around that, I would maybe take a little bit of stab. Maybe, I don't know. Who knows if you want to. Pracknell minus 120, Felipe Lins. I wanted to look into this one, maybe Lins, but then I'm like, nah. You know what? Pracknell's been on a roll. Why don't you stop betting against him and do your research? And since I didn't do my research, I'm not going to bet against him or pick against him. So I'll pick Pracknell, and I stayed away. Again, I clearly did a lot of research for these fights, so don't take it too seriously. Dean Barry, who the fuck is that? Minus 1125. Mike Jackson. I think Dean Barry has like kickboxing accolades on his shit too. But again, who knows what to make of that? Mike Jackson has golden gloves on his, but results may vary with those accolades as well. No offense to Mike Jackson. Not going to shit on him. Happy for you, brother, doing your thing. Go get it. I hope you do well, but I will pick Dean Barry. Yeah, all right. How did we do on time there? 143. Again, hour and 43 every time, folks. Every time. All right, going to recap picks and plays. Bellator Hawaii. The only thing I really went over there was taking Carmouche and playing her. By decision, sprinkled in one house, but money line plus 135 or 125. That's what I ended up getting it for because I waited. Bellator 279, leaning toward all the favorites. Cyborg over Blanco. Stotts over Archuleta. McFarlane over Quiche. Feel more confident about. And not as confident as Horiguchi, Patchy, perhaps, but we'll see. I'll see where I end up on that. Check out my main card picks and prognostications. And if I end up on the favorites and then UFC's doing well, depending on the time difference, because this will be late, that card, I may parlay all four of those in the neighborhood of plus 180. So we'll see. Check out my Twitter at DanTomMMA to see what I do there. Recapping picks and plays for UFC Fight Night taking Andrade over Lemos, taking Guida over Puelles, taking Barber over De La Rosa, taking Jourdain over Venata, taking Romanov over Sherman, taking Barriou over Wright, taking Kehondusco over Grant, taking Orishi Lang, the Mongolian murderer, over Else, taking Tyson Pedro over Villanueva, taking Parsons over Elden Ring, taking Prachniau over Lins, taking Barry over Jackson, parlayed Orichi Lang and Mark Barriou for plus 117 at 1 unit, took Carmouche money line plus 125 1 unit, took Guida money line minus 120 for 1.2 units, sprinkled a little bit of Carmouche decision at one house, half a unit at plus 225, Andrade inside the distance plus 135 at 1 unit, Orichi Lang inside the distance plus 100, Barriou inside the distance plus 150, sprinkled on Barriou round 2 for my free play plus 1200 at 0.10 units. That's $10, 10 ducats. If you round robin, I suggest you round robin Andrade inside the distance, Orichi Lang inside the distance, Barriou inside the distance, and either if you like Carmouche inside the distance, want to feel spicy, do that if you're feeling me there. If not, then I say, get chalky and either throw Tyson Pedro or Alexander Romanov as your fourth. And if you want to do 5, go ahead, I guess there too, but as your fourth for the typical round robin 4, which I give if I have. If I don't, I don't give, as I did not give last week because there was not confidence there. Unfortunately, I'm at a shit house still, so all I can do is parlay props. So the ones I chose to parlay, I couldn't parlay the Carmouche decision prop in that house even if I wanted to, so it was only UFC. I just parlayed Andrade inside the distance, Orichi Lang inside the distance, and Barriou inside the distance. If they all finish for plus 175, I use my free play in that house for 0.13 units. Bad luck 13 ducats. Just for fun. And then, of course, I already laid out my Carmouche play. All right, folks, mixedmartialanalyst.com to support this here show. For the PayPal, secure PayPal links if you want to donate to this your free program that will remain free, and I've been doing free for half a decade and will continue to do for free. Or you can also find it in my link tree for those secure PayPal links at Dan Tom MMA on the social platforms. Twitter is where I'm really at and am active at the PYN podcast on all social platforms. Like, follow, subscribe. It really helps. I won't pollute your feed. Subscribe on YouTube, Daniel Tom MMA. I don't deserve it, but you can. 5-star ratings and reviews are appreciated. I throw in the music and the editing on these here shows. If you're listening through Apple Podcasts, 5-star ratings and reviews really help, folks. I'll go and read them off when I have time and I don't push the limits. All right, that's it. Good luck on your picks and plays, and always protect your neck.